it up there, make it nice and neat. Okay, perfect. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about how the terrible planning of the tariff rollout and what is taking place within the economy now, and how that is going to impact our lives, and maybe if they had done better planning, then they would have been able to perform a much better task at succeeding in what it is that they were attempting to do. Is that a good entry? Ultimately, the terrible planning that is happening right now is resulting in a lot of essentially the reversal of what it is that everybody believed that was going to be taking place. Now, for example, I'm just going to read you some of these articles. Trump rules out firing Powell while pushing him to cut rates. Now, that's something that he has always said about dropping rates, but there was definitely some talk about whether or not he could fire Jerome Powell, was going to replace him with somebody else, doing all kinds of talk about how that was going to happen, and essentially had to back up on those words. You guys back? All right, sorry about that. I turned the dang Wi-Fi off. Let me see if I can get you straighter there now. Get you more upright instead of slouching. There we go. So ultimately, I knew from the very beginning that there was no way Donald Trump was going to be firing Jerome Powell. It wasn't going to happen. He doesn't have the power. It's not within the Federal Reserve's charter policy, the way that things are conducted. That's not how it works. In fact, there is rules, specific rules in place to keep the administration from being able to fire the chairman of the Federal Reserve simply because they don't like the way that they're doing their job. That's not something that they have the ability to do. And all the discussion that ever went around it really, I believe, was misguiding the people, giving them this belief that there was going to be some sort of change to the way that the Federal Reserve was going to be conducted, or a change to monetary policy. Like if Jerome Powell doesn't bow down to Trump's will, what he wants, then he's going to get fired or something like that. And never once did I ever believe that or think about it being part of the plan. But it did put a lot of fear and anxiety and certainty excuse me, into the people themselves. Is everything coming through? We're still rolling all right? All right. The other one, China quietly exempts about a quarter of U.S. imports from tariffs. Now, this is something that I have really thought that was going to be taking place for quite some time, is that we have no idea what it is that's going to be happening over the next 90 days between exemptions, workarounds, whatever, just outright relieving of the tariffs. Nobody knows exactly what it is that's happening out there. And I believe as time goes on, more and more and more of these tariffs are just simply going to just vanish away, as the results of the tariffs are more of an inflationary expectation as what they were really planning on doing. See, they aren't planning on really pushing these tariffs as far as permanency. What they were doing is putting the idea out there of massive tariffs, and now the credible threat is the relieving of these tariffs, and eventually most of these tariffs are probably going to be just faded away, as we see every day more and more articles like that coming up. In fact, there was another one in here. Jaguar Land Rover restarts car exports to U.S. London, back to U.S. This is reported out of the London Times. Something that I found interesting is another article coming out of Bloomberg, right? This is, I believe, Bloomberg, Financial Times, and Reuters. All paywalls, right? All paywalls, and then no Fox News, no CNBC, no CNN, none of those other ones are covering U.S. manufacturing activity shrinks by the most since November. Right? This is completely opposite of what it is that people would have been anticipating. Is like, well, if you're going to have all these tariffs, and you're going to have a ramping up of domestic manufacturers, because people are not going to be ordering that stuff out of, off of the foreign production. But yet, what do we see taking place? Exactly the opposite. But something I found interesting behind that is that the mainstream media here in the United States doesn't seem to want to cover it. Like literally, just type it in right now, U.S. manufacturing activity shrinks. And you're going to find, at least from what I have found, no Fox News, no CNN, no CNBC, none of those mainstream media articles. You will find Bloomberg, Financial Times, and Reuters, but they're all paywalls. You have to pay to get to them, to get to the articles. You see, like this is like manipulation at its finest. But ultimately, a lot of people are going to be misguided by why they are doing it. Like most people are going to have all this like really great, and I'm not going to say that it's not part of it. Like to say like I don't know, whatever conspiracy minded thing that is going to pop up from it that leads you down that road. I mean, I'm not saying those things aren't taking place. Ultimately, all of this is to raise the inflation expectation. This is all to save the monetary policy. Because you think about it, if they say, oh, there's going to be massive tariffs, but then by the time the tariffs are supposed to take place, there was very few tariffs, there's very little of them. Like, what is it that you were really trying to do other than really create the fear and uncertainty and doubt within the people that puts the elevated inflation expectation out there, and then you can keep that going as long as you can through the mainstream media. Right? So long as you feel that, oh man, this is going to work. The tariffs are pushing the idea that this is going to bring manufacturing back to the United States and screw them people over there. What was it? What did Trump call China? It was in a meeting. He called them. The United States has been being ripped off. We're ripped off by the entire world, something of that nature. And then he says China is Chiefripper Offerer. And I thought, holy crap! Did you just call China a Chiefripper Offerer? Is that like I mean, I'm sorry, I've been reading a lot of economics and trying to figure out all this stuff and monetary policy, and sometimes the language can get really confusing as far as like how that is that they communicate, and like Fed speak can get really complicated and stuff like that. I've never heard the term Chiefripper Offer before, right? That's a whole new one to me. And I'm thinking to myself, what does that even mean, Chiefripper Offer? I mean, here they are taking their time, their energy, their people, their skills, their labor, everything, sending us that stuff, and then we send them an empty paper promise to pay with more empty promises to pay into the future. And I'm thinking, their Chiefripper Offerer? I don't know about that. I'm thinking there's somebody else out there who's Chiefripper Offerer. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I heard that. I'm like, come on. Like, let's talk about like what it is that's really happening out here in order to understand what it is that we can do for ourselves inside of like our own personal decisions for business, when it comes to our retirement, when it comes to the investments that we do, just because we want to be able to become more capitalistic mindset people with property ownership, so we don't have to be working our asses off every single day like everybody seems to believe that they're going to have to do. We can avoid that stuff if we truly understand what is going on. And when you think about how it is that this raises the inflation expectation, raises the neutral interest rate, puts the Fed funds rate very close to that neutral position, the unemployment seems to be surprisingly strong into this. It's like no doubt in my mind that the Federal Reserve has totally won in in their not only in the planning of how it was that they were going to save their monetary policy, but then to shift the blame and everything else out there and all the view to anything but them. It is so amazing. They said it. They said it in their own words. It would seem counterintuitive that the Fed would want to push up inflation. And at the time that was stated by Jerome Powell in August 27th of 2020 in a speech he was giving, at the time that he did that, there was no inflation, right? Hadn't taken place. In fact, it was just Donald Trump who had just recently just saying there was no inflation and the Fed should be printing money, right? He was all over that stuff. He was like, man, there's no inflation going on out here. Why does the Federal Reserve have elevated interest rates? They should lower interest rates. They should take interest rates into negative territory. Germany's doing the right thing by taking interest rates into negative territory. This is all stuff that Donald Trump said during his first administration. Yet there was no inflation taking place at the time. A couple years later, here we are rolling into COVID. And the Federal Reserve says, yeah, it would seem counterintuitive that we would want to push up inflation. Doesn't seem like we would want to do that. Yeah, no, you're right. That doesn't seem right. But however, if we don't, it will be a terrible event for the economy. They plan this stuff out very well. What doesn't seem very planned out is all this tariff stuff, because all that tariff stuff is to raise the fear and uncertainty and doubt within the people out there, and it works. It totally works. I don't know how many people ran out there and started creating elevated purchases in order to get ahead of the tariffs, and now what you're seeing is a whole drop in purchases due to the fact that there's going to be a bullwhip effect that comes from it. Being able to see that well ahead of time, know that it's taken place, know that the Federal Reserve is anticipating and expecting these tariffs to thaw away. Most of them, by their own words, they say this. I mean, it's not me making it up, it's them saying it, right? I mean, we've covered many speeches in the past. We've covered lots of articles talking specifically about monetary policy and how it is that they are working this. And when I see articles that are coming out that are locked away, you have to have a paywall to get to them. They're not allowing some of this information to get out there. Meanwhile, many other pieces of information that are totally misguided are pushed out there in a profound way. Much like, I want to fire Jerome Powell. All right? He knew he didn't want to fire him. He wasn't planning on firing him, couldn't fire him to begin with. And anybody who even put in thought, energy, belief, or anything else into it was falling right into the credible threat of how it is that they are using that guidance in order to conduct you. It's obvious. It's obvious now. When you look at all the articles that come out that are like just 2 months ago talking about how this was going to be the most painful experience ever and everybody's going to be suffering and crying and pain, and then all you see is just nothing but thawing away from that. Think about it. It was the credible threat of being in pain. Now it's the credible threat of all these things fading away. Is it going to happen? Sure. You can't have... There's going to be some industries which are already facing issues. You're not going to, I'm not saying there's not going to be collateral damage from this. It's not like everybody's just going to get out unscathed, right? I mean, people who recognize and see what's happening, they're probably going to do much better than anybody else will do. But if you never believed that the Federal Reserve was attempting to lower interest rates to begin with, if you never had that belief, like to begin with, everybody says, oh, they're going to do it, or you think they're going to do it? And I was just like, no, I don't. I think they'll talk about it. They may lower them symbolically just to make sure that they can establish the credible threat, but they have no intentions on lowering interest rates. I mean, how many people were saying that? Very few. Everybody was like, how much? How when? How by, right? And I'm like, I don't think they really want to. In fact, I know they don't. I know they don't want to because they say they don't want to. They want elevated inflation expectation to raise the neutral interest rate, because raising the neutral interest rate moves the Fed funds rate. It doesn't move the Fed funds rate. It just moves the economy into a less restricted position. So long as the neutral interest rate or the expectation is risen. The reality of the situation doesn't have to happen. In fact, it's better that it doesn't, so there's more economic activity. But if your elevated inflation expectation is maintained and well powered up, I don't know how else to describe it, because that's what most of this is doing, then it's going to create the outcome that they are looking for, which is to raise that neutral interest rate. I think it's so important for people to think about that position, that neutral interest rate position, because nobody, literally nobody talks about it. You can Google it and you will find some people who do discuss it in some sense, but never, ever, ever do you find where the mainstream media has been put that into the idea that every time that neutral interest rate rises by an elevated inflation expectation, it makes the economy less restricted, and we find, why is it that it's so resilient? I mean, people ask all the time. It was just like, do you think there's a recession? And I said, no, there's a recessionless recession that we are going through. Eventually that will fade away. And in fact, I stopped using the recessionless recession, because that thing is over, right? The power of the recessionless recession, when everybody said there was going to be a recession in 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, right? I mean, it was just like, well, actually there was, the quickest, deepest recession during COVID. But everybody said there was going to be this recession that was going to be coming from it. And I'm like, I don't think so. It was already bailed out, right? What is the worst part of a recession? Corporations get bailed out and everybody loses their job. Well, what if unemployment stays incredibly low? What if unemployment stays incredibly low and the corporations don't get bailed out? They're allowed to fail. Like a bunch of them are allowed to fail. What happened? What's going, like, that's exactly what happened. I've been saying that for like 2 years, 3, 4 years. Since, and the idea wasn't from me just imagining that. This is how it came about. When you had during COVID, right, there was something called the special purpose vehicle set up. The special purpose vehicle for buying corporate debt put something into the market that had never existed before, and that was the Federal Reserve was going to be buying in to this corporate debt. They don't have a position in which that they can do that. They can lend money to the banks who buy the corporate debt, and in a kind of a roundabout way, they do buy corporate debt, but not like the outright purchasing. They can't buy it and put it on their balance sheet like they can U.S. Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. This is important to understand because people say it all the time. Well, they just bail out these, the Federal Reserve just bails them out. They can't, right? But now if you're in an unusual and exigent circumstance like COVID, now you have the ability to set up something called the special purpose vehicle in conjunction with the Treasury, fund it with hundreds of billions of dollars, and say that you are going to be buying the fallen angels. Now, this did something very interesting because it put this idea out there that the Federal Reserve was going to be buying into this corporate debt, right? These are corporate debt. What's that? Corporations, when they want to borrow money, they sell bonds, much like the United States sells bonds when they want to borrow money. So the United States Treasury is a bond, right? That people can buy like a 10-year bond. Corporations sell something very similar, and it's called corporate debt, much like government debt, right? Sovereign debt is government debt, right? Corporate debt comes from corporations doing something very similar. Now, the Federal Reserve can buy the sovereign debt of the United States, the treasuries, and they do have the authority to buy foreign debt as well, although they don't do that, not yet, right? They've never had the ability to just outright buy corporate debt. And so now here it is, pandemic, unusual and exigent circumstance. A special purpose vehicle is an entity that's separated from the Federal Reserve and the Treasury, funded with hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's called the Corporate Debt Lending Facility. They buy a little bit of corporate debt with this. This sends a ripple throughout the markets of people screaming the Federal Reserve is going to be picking the winners and losers. I know I was one of them. I was one of these people out there on YouTube, along with all the mainstream media, saying, holy crap, look what they're doing. Look what this is doing. People ran out there and started buying that corporate debt long before the Federal Reserve was buying into it. In fact, most of these corporations were able to find funding before that corporate debt lending facility was even up and operational. All these corporations were gorging, literally selling massive amounts of debt at an incredibly low yield. This is a very high price because people were trying to front run the Federal Reserve, and corporations gorged on incredibly cheap debt. Well, what happens when all of a sudden you're sitting on a bunch of funding? You got a bunch of cash. You're going to be expanding operations, buildings, equipment, hiring people. All of a sudden we had a huge corporate buying or corporate hiring. Remember that? There was no jobs at the service industry. Everybody went up to these zombie corporations and started working up there. They had jobs they had no qualifications for. All these people had, all these corporations had this money they needed to spend, and so they just hired people. They hired a ton of those people. So now you got all these jobs that are not filled down in the service industry. People are wondering where all the workers go. Nobody wants to work. Well, right? Well, maybe because they went and got this high-paying job at a zombie corporations when they didn't even need a degree to get it, do you think? I mean, what would you rather be doing? A lot of people just didn't even go to work. Right? And they was just like, nah, I don't think so. I think I'm just going to collect this enhanced unemployment and then become a hippie farmer for a couple of years. There was all kinds of things that left the service or made people leave the service industry. So now that puts it in a position of two things. One, corporations are sitting on a ton of cash, and a lot of them are zombie corporations that need to fail. And two, if you all of a sudden have a whole bunch of these corporations failing, these zombie corporations failing, and those people need to find a job, well, there's plenty of work flipping burgers. It may not be a good job, but it's a job, right? And that's the whole point of it, is that when you have nobody working or very few people working down in the service industry, and you have a bloated zombie corporation debt debt enhanced, infused, like unsustainable position, right? All these people who are going to lose those jobs, which would normally cause unemployment to go sky high, fell down into the service industry because it's a job and it was available. Right. And that's one of the reasons why you didn't see the unemployment rise so dramatically. I've been calling that out for like 4 years now. I don't even know how far back I go, the recessionless recession theory. Right. People laughed and joked around about that, said, oh man, just a few years, you're going to see unemployment so high. And I'm like, well, I guess we'll wait and see. Here it is. Totally right. Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Right. But this is coming to an end. These corporations that are eventually going to fail, all the service industry jobs are eventually going to get filled, and then they're going to be in a tight position. And this is what's now starting to take place. See, up until now, we didn't have the recession because it was already bailed out. It was pre-bailed out with that corporate debt lending facility creating the environment within the economy through the credible threat theory of getting people to go out there and fund these corporations. And when those corporations got funded, massive amounts of zombie corporations were created, hired a bunch of people, and then those people fell into the service industry. You want to hear about a crazy story that I heard? Have you ever heard of the Fyre Festival? Fyre Festival. It was kind of this, it was a Netflix documentary that I was watching this morning. This dude Billy, man, he like set things up. Like he had this whole music festival thing that he was planning on doing down in like the Bahamas. And it was just a total fraudulent thing. Like, I don't know if he necessarily realized like he was scamming. I think he did, like, I mean, deep down inside, but he really tried to pull it off. But it was like this terrible, like, music festival where they were going to invite, like, I don't know, 6,000 people down to this like secluded island to hang out with all these like rock stars and supermodels, and it was super expensive to get down there. And by the time, like, and they tried to do it, but the logistics nightmare of it was just terrible. And the people who planned it really did put some heart and soul into the idea of putting this whole festival together, but there was no way that it was ever going to be pulled off. It was like cutting it from scratch. There was like, it was a horrible logistical nightmare. It ended up raining the day before, destroying all the tents essentially for everybody to stay in. There was no real food or water facilities or anything else. So all of a sudden, these people started showing up for this festival, and it was a nightmare. Oh man. And like, I'm surprised that the people were able to handle it as well without completely like just looting. And I don't know, maybe they did and they just didn't show it in the film or in the documentary. But man, and I thought to myself, that's a power pendulum of all power pendulums, where you get everybody up on this idea and start moving forward with it, and then it can't stop. Like, these people literally were like the best at what they could do. Like, I don't know if they're the best at what they could do, but they were doing the best at what they were doing in order to get this thing to absolute and it was an absolute failure. Like, every turn in the gate there was a problem, and they would do as hard as they could to fix the problems and deal with it and get this festival moving. And it was a complete like sham to begin with. It was like just destroyed so many people's like livelihoods and just like their reputations and stuff. And what it was really crazy about that dude is that his name was Billy, right? And he's out on bail, and he pulls like he's like pulling the same thing, like this scam, and he doesn't even plan it, like nothing. He's just selling tickets to like meet Taylor Swift and all kinds of stuff, and he's just pumping this stuff out there online to like, I guess, to try and make some money or whatever. And I'm like, holy crap, this guy has no idea what the hell, like, any kind of repercussion of life. Like, it's just holy moly. And it was just amazing to see. Like, I think about that and I'm like, holy crap, man, that's what ends up happening when people get on board. Like, they're like, no, man, you just got to go with the plan. Just stick to the plan. You'll know. We'll see. At the end of this is going to be an awesome festival. People are going to talk about it. It's going to be epic. It's going to go down in history as the best in the world, right? And then at the end of the day, no, it was a complete sham. It was like completely fraudulent. And people who were involved from the very beginning were seeing it as they're like, holy mackerel, man, there's no way that this is going to happen. Like, we got to cancel the thing. And they were like, no, keep going. Keep going. And they were like, you know how it is in the industry. It's always like you're never going to make it, and it's always tight, and it's going to be so difficult, but you always perform. The show must go on. Go do it, right? And then meanwhile, they ended up with all these thousands of people showing up, and there was absolutely no event to this thing. And like, It was horrible. It was just a complete disaster. All right. That was a fun story to tell. All right. I don't even really know that much about the story. Anyway, the Fyre Festival 2 is a thing. Is it? Yeah. I do gotta go watch that damn Netflix thing. It was so good. All right. Cross that bridge when we get there. Yeah. Coachella wannabe. All right. What kind of decking? Hey, are decking prices low? Cedar prices are not treated like, I don't know, a lot of people up in our area, we really like, it's not as popular as it used to be, but treated deck boards. So they take like a 2x6 fir board, and what we sell personally at our yard is an all fir board. We don't have like the hem fir like a lot of other people, or pine boards. Ours are an all fir product, which is a much more stable product, and lasts much longer with the treatment. And what they do is they run it through the pressure treatment process, and they treat it to what they call resistance. So they don't actually poke holes in it to incise it, is what that's referred to as, incisor marks, to make the chemical go deeper into the board. It's just really much more surface treated, but it is like, treated to resistance, so it'll absorb as much as it can. Those deck boards are much less than any other deck board out there. And considering that a lot of other boards out there, or a lot of other decking, is made from different types of materials and stuff, you would really have to check the pricing between it. There are some composite deckings that have gotten very cheap. Like each one of them, like all the brand names, I don't want to say the names. All the brand names have like their good, better, best. There are some very inexpensive composite deckings out there. If you can find stocking dealers, like even ask the lumberyard, are they a stocking dealer of composite decking? And if they say yes, then ask them what kind. When they tell you the brand, then ask them what is the least expensive one that they make, right? Or go and look online, you can see it as far as what it goes. And then from there, you can kind of price comparison, because a lot of times people will go and they'll pick out their favorite color, and their favorite color ends up being like $6, $7, $8 a foot, because, well, guess what? Everybody loves expensive, right? So if you go and you want like a composite deck for, say, the back steps constantly, rot away, and I'm tired of it or whatever. I just want to build it up, make it look nice, and I don't want to mess with it ever again. I want it to be maintenance free. Okay, so you might want to go to the lower end composite decking and get the cheaper stuff. But if this is like the main entry to the house, or it's going to be something that you're going to be entertaining on a lot, or you're going to be like, it's going to be like a feature, then you're going to want to step it up to the higher end deckings. And now something that you can do when it comes to composite decking, can you tell I'm a salesman when it comes to composite decking? One of the things you're going to want to do when it comes to composite decking is not only take a look at it, like the surface of it, of like what it is that you want for the appearance. Because if you start finding a lot of color variations, and you have like very detailed wood grain patterns in it, like it looks like, the further it gets away, the more realistic it becomes to look. Because obviously when you hold composite decking, it looks fake, right? But the further you take it away, the more real it looks. I guarantee you that thing is probably going to be costing you more than if you picked up a cheaper composite deck, look at it, say, man, it kind of looks like plastic. The grain pattern on it's very consistent. It's not very like, attractive in the sense that it's just like, wow, look at the features inside of this, right? It's just very simple looking. You're most likely going to find that it's going to be less expensive. Now, here comes the gimmick. This is what I really, really love to do, is that I take the cheaper one and I take a nail and I say, okay, can you imagine the dog, the kids with their toys, the barbecue, people with the furniture, they're dragging that across the deck. And I take a nail, like a 16 penny nail, and I run it across the face of the cheaper composite decking, and you will gouge the hell out of the face, right? Then you grab the higher end, even in the same line, it doesn't matter what brand it is, they have the good, better, best. That's why I'm saying you got to do this inside of even within their own brands. Take the higher end and take that 16 penny nail and scratch it across the face of the samples, right? And you're going to find that the higher end decking has a much stronger, durable surface to it, right? That is a great selling point. Here's something that's very interesting. I have sold way, way, way more of that cheaper decking than I do of the higher end decking, Because when it comes to the higher end decking, there's lots of varieties that are out there, especially if you're willing to pay the price. So now the world is wide open. And so you have like all these different varieties that you end up going to, and you end up finding a stocking dealer of it. Now, when it comes to the cheapest one out there, now you're in a very competitive thing because people are not caring necessarily on what it looks like. They just want the composite decking to be put down, call it out as a feature for the selling of the house. It's a rental property. They don't care about it. They just don't want to, maintenance it like they used to. Now, I take that scratch test, I scratch it across the cheap thing, totally gouges it, do it across the expensive one. It doesn't do it. People end up generally moving up into the higher end decking, but it's complete gimmick. I have never, ever in all the years that I have been selling composite decking, have I ever had anybody come back to me and say, dude, that cheaper decking really gouges, right? Nobody ever says it. I show it to them, they buy it, they don't have a problem with it. Never have I had anybody say, man, that's a terrible product, it's always screwed up or anything else like that. Never. Like, not on any of the brands that I have sold of those cheaper deckings, showing them that trick. It's a gimmick to begin with. If you ever go to buy it, do it. Do it for yourself, right? But I guarantee you, nobody has ever had a problem with the surface of it, no matter what it is. It's weird. But it's a good selling point. It's a great gimmick. It works. What do you guys want to talk about? We got 300 people. I got to go cook some ribs up here in a little bit. What time is it? What time is it here? Okay, I got like another 20 minutes. Yeah. I use a stick with a nail to scratch my back while in the hot tub. Oh, that's cool. I wonder if the tariffs are going to affect solar panels. This is something that I found pretty interesting about solar panels is like, you see the tariffs kind of work in a sense that the demand for solar panels, I believe here in the United States, had increased. Like there was a bump in the demand for them. The problem that is faced is that China is going to end up flooding the world with solar panels. Like if they haven't already just completely decimated the idea of anybody else producing them. There's no way in the amount that China can produce can anybody compete within it. It's just like you can have competition, you can force it, you can make sure that you maintain it through the tariffs and subsidies and all the other stuff that go along with it. So I'm not saying that you can't do it. The underlying economic forces are always going to be there, attempting to push down on the ability to expand that particular production because China is overproduced in them. Eventually what you're going to find is a collapse in people who are producing solar panels because of the sheer amount of them that are going to be out there. When the dust settles, China's going to still have more production of solar panels than anybody else, right? Because they have overproduced within it. So nobody can really produce now if they're overproducing them. You can make better quality, you can make them closer, you can try and do all the other stuff that's going to be somewhat competitive, especially if you do tariffs and subsidies, then you can probably make it appear that it's a viable company, but without the ever increasing amounts of government intervention, China would rule. That's all there is to it. And so, like, knowing that that's probably on the horizon at some point, that there is going to be an overproduction of them that is going to start destroying the production facilities, not in, like blowing them up, just, their ability to profit. That's essentially the same thing, right? You might as well just blow them up. But if they can't profit because of the incredible amount of panels that are just existing in the world, simply because China has overproduced them, then what would the investment do? It's not going to have continual investment. People are going to get, they're just going to see the light on it and just be like, well, like if there was a limited amount of them and there was a demand for them, then yeah, maybe. But if you're going to have nothing but government intervention, that's going to have to always be there, or else it would simply just disappear and fly over to China. Then, like, that's not how long can that last? Right? I mean, it's just eventually going to be an ever, like I said, ever increase. Like the moment that the government gets out of the way, you lose your job. Does that sound like, something that you want? Like, I want my job so long as government is interfering in my life or it has to be involved in my life. Like, I don't want government in my life. So I think about it in that fashion. If my good manufacturing job can only exist as if there's tariffs and subsidies, The moment that they're not there, if the tax revenues are not there, if the profit's not there, if the administration is not there, my job is gone. I would much rather work for an independent company that does not have any of that affiliation going on where they have to rely on government subsidies or tariffs in order to exist. Right? Like, I want government out of my life. I don't want them more involved. I don't want them trying to do things to try and keep it happening. And because that's ever increasing amounts of them getting into interference. And although if we don't do it, you're going to find the separation and the pain and suffering that comes from that. But ultimately, there's going to be pain and suffering coming no matter which direction you go with it. It's better to understand it, what is happening, so that you can position yourself for it. Now, I'm personally not pro or against the idea of tariffs or what is going to come from it. I really don't. But I laugh at the idea that they're going to try and return manufacturing back to the United States. It ain't going to happen. I mean, there's thousands of years of economic history that are proving that once manufacturing has left the state, it doesn't come back. Your luxurious standard of living prevents you from being competitive on a world scale when it comes to production. You can try. There's going to be government subsidies and tariffs forever, but that's the problem, right? Now you got government involved with your life. You're going to have them owning everything and controlling of everything. It's the boot on the face of humanity. Prevent you from diving into ever increasing amounts of luxury. Stop you from buying that foreign production. What did Trump say when he was calling them the Chiefripper Offerer? He said that maybe the kids won't, maybe the little girls or something won't have $30. They'll have $2, and they'll have to pay a couple of dollars more for it, right? Think about that. You will no longer have the luxury. That's what he's saying. He called you a little girl. He might as well say it. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a little girl or if you're some dude looking for a race car part, right? He's saying the same thing to you. Maybe you don't get 20, 30 of them. You get 2, and you're going to pay a couple of dollars more for it. That's what I heard, right? He was saying that to everybody out there, and I'm like, yeah, no kidding, man. I mean, maybe you shouldn't have any dollars to begin with. Maybe you should be driving a 97 Suburban that has a damn leaky fuel neck. I fixed that the other day. But you guys get what I'm saying here? It's like the idea of putting a boot on the face of humanity is described just like that. Maybe they don't get 30 dolls. Maybe you only get 2, and they're going to be American-made dolls, right? And you're going to pay a couple of dollars more for them, and you're going to be happy with your 2, and that's it. Well, maybe some people want 30, right? I know people who have 15 cars. It's their hobby. They enjoy it. Is that something that he's saying that they shouldn't do? I mean, that's kind of what I heard. I mean, he's saying that little girl can't have 30 dolls. Maybe that dude shouldn't have 15 cars. That's exactly the same thing. That's exactly what it is that he is trying to say. I don't know if anybody else heard it. And then calls China the Chiefripper Offerer. God, that was so funny. I couldn't believe it. I just played it back over and over again. I'm like, did he honestly just say that? I mean, if I was to use a term like that, it was just like, okay, guys, listen, China is the Chiefripper Offerer here, right? And you'd be like, what the hell? You know, it was just like, you know, this is like, you know, nobody would like give you any kind of real consideration. But yeah, we're going to give him consideration when he says words like that. I'm like, that is not an economic term, Chiefripper Offerer. I mean, why don't you be real with us? I think we can handle it, you know? But no, little girls don't get 30 dolls, they get 2, and they're going to have to pay a couple of dollars more for it. Think about that as your race car part goes. Think about that when it comes to your fishing hobbies. Think about that when it comes to everything that you got. You got 30 fishing poles, maybe you only deserve 2. What do you need 30 fishing poles for? Right? Same thing. I don't know how many people heard that stuff. Right? I wish I had it right now so I could play it. God, I should go look for it. Chiefripper Offerer. Yeah. It's just, I don't know why I laugh at this stuff and even think about it. I should just move on. People are too small-minded. People are too small-minded to see how Trump is doing his foreign strategy. All right, Treasury Secretary Scott Bensman said Fed needs to cut rates because 2-year yield below Fed funds rate, credible threat to spur stock market. Yeah, I don't know. Does anybody even listen to those people anymore? I mean, I don't know. I just keep thinking the Federal Reserve is wanting to be in a position that the elevated inflation expectation raises the neutral interest rate so they can sit still with their Fed funds rate while the economy becomes less restricted during a resilient unemployment like labor market. I don't know. Like I keep saying it over and over. I don't see it any other way. So it's just like I can't say it any other way. People say you say the same thing over and over again. I was like, I know, because that's what's happening. Like, how can I say the same thing over and over again and constantly be right about it? It's because that's what's happening. That's the only other way. Let me cruise back up here. Oops. Where did that go? Thank you, Buffalo Blanco, for the $9.99. Good afternoon. Still catching on all Fed speeches. Can I get your opinion on a class action lawsuit on property taxes on going to 13 sales tax through? I don't think it's feasible. This is in Texas. Oh man, I don't know. I would have to really take into the information and really kind of give it some kind of consideration as far as it goes. Um, as far as the class action lawsuit against it, I don't know. I mean, I guess that would be like in like a constitutionally mindseted position, but if it was like done through proper channels and legislation, I don't know how it is that it could be like, a constitutional issue. I mean, already the money is unconstitutional, so pretty much everything else after that is unconstitutional as well. So I guess you got that. But, I don't know. I would have to look into the details of that particular argument. But I really appreciate the 9.99, man. I wish I had better insight for you on that. Deezer D, $5. Thanks for the decking heads up. Enjoy the ribs. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, what time is it? All right, no, I got a few more minutes. Never knew Simon had such strong feelings about deck. Hey, man, when you sell it as much as like I have, man, I do that every day. Right? I do windows, doors, siding, decking. I can do that with all those products, all those building products. I could do that all day long. You want to talk about siding? Let's talk about fiber cement sidings. Let's talk about all the different styles of fiber cement sidings, and what it is that you can do. There's a couple of brand names out there, but there's also a few other products that are similar to that of the brand names that do offer a better pricing. And once you have a fiber cement sided house and that's properly installed and properly painted, as far as sealed up goes, you have something that's really bulletproof. It's like one of the only sidings that's really like fire retardant, I mean, it's like made of cement, right? So it's not even fire retardant, it's like fire resistance. And the idea of having like a cladding on the outside of the house that is made of concrete, like how can, like, the only thing better than that might be like what, steel or something of that nature, and steel doesn't look good. With the fiber cement siding, you can have something that's very similar to that like street appearance of being like an actual wood sided house. I mean, I recognize it for what it is, so I know it's fiber cement, but ultimately the general look of the house is a really good look. It's a very traditional look and it's very long lasting. So yeah, what else do you want to know about? You want me to continue on building materials? I can do this all day. I can do it all day, all kinds of building materials. I can just stay on decking all day if you want. All right, class actions are not what they're cracked up to be. They lack teeth. Self limitation comes with more right. My dog is tariffed from Purina and Chewy, but I keep praying. Well, bummer deja vu. I'll pray for your dog too. All right. We just got some it's locally made dog food for Luna. Luna's not that big of a dog, so she doesn't eat that much. She's like maybe 40 pounds. And so we got her some dog food from the local pet store. So we have out here in our little community, we have a local store. It's called Two Old Goats, and they sell like farm and feed and different things like that, and, agricultural supply stuff. And they have this dog food there that's locally made and it has venison in it, right? So it's got like this deer meat, and holy crap, the dog just ate it all. And she's like normally just like not that like aggressive of an eater, and she loved this stuff. So, and it's local, and that's cool. I like that. All right. I was a structural welder 40 years ago. None are steel. None are steel come from U.S. Yeah, I would imagine none of it. Yeah, I would imagine that a good chunk of that is now coming from foreign production. But that's like how you expect it to go because of the rise in the standard of living. Your luxurious experience makes it uncompetitive to produce things that foreign nations can produce and ship to you at a cheaper price. It's just you can't stop it. Like you can create all this government intervention, which is fine if you want to live like that, but I don't. I'd rather have them out of my life. I don't want them in my life, and the only way to get this to work is to have them more involved in your life. One, to prevent things from to prevent foreign production from moving in, which is you not enjoying your luxurious experience, right? $2 instead of $30, and you're gonna have to pay a couple of more dollars for it because the domestic steel is a hell of a lot more expensive, and you're not going to get as much of it because the world produces a lot that they send to us. So you're going to get a limited amount of steel, and you're going to pay a higher price for it, right? Same thing. Yeah, I mean, I that's when I hear that. That's what I hear. So when I see statements like that, I go right back to what that Donald Trump was saying about the dolls and the girls and the only paying, getting $2 instead of 30. And I'm thinking, man, you just to me that you just said that to the entire world and whatever it is that they are wanting to purchase. I mean, plywood plant closing in Virginia, GP laying off 500 plus. Those jobs are gone as plant closing for good. No one is buying due to housing industry and contraction. Oh, here comes the family. I'm gonna have to get the barbecue in here in just a few minutes. Yeah, they're closing the Geldwin operations here locally too, and I forget how many jobs that was. And that's another building supplier or building materials. What's happening, guys? Give me a few minutes. I'll come in and start them ribs up. Biff knows what he's doing. Give him time. Biff? Biff no. Oh, Biff. That's good from Back to the Future. Isn't it amazing? Yeah, Biff knows what he's doing. All right. Dixie Sugar will stop concrete from setting. Concrete truck drivers are supposed to drive with a 50-pound bag of sack in case of emergency, so I've been told. Yeah, it's amazing. Like when you want to do exposed aggregate, you spray the surface. Like, at least I don't know. They probably make some kind of chemical for it as well. But if you just mix up a bunch of sugar water and spray it on the top of a concrete slab, you can rinse it off later and expose the aggregate. Now, I personally haven't done it, but the crew that I was working for, the boss did it, and he was very meticulous to make sure that it was a nice, clean surface. So he always did it himself. But we would pour it out, lay it flat, edge it, and do all that other stuff. But yeah, sugar keeps concrete from setting up. You're a good dad. Thumbs up for you. Oh, thanks. All right, deplorable. It's great to see you up in here, bud. All right, the party picks the candidate, and you only get those two choices anyway. But you don't, man. See, that's the deal. You only think you do, so you fall into a left-right paradigm. And understanding that there is far more possibilities out there that we can do. Now, I guarantee you, if everybody started behaving in a way that made them irrelevant in their life, like choosing to take a path every single day that says what is it that I can do to get them out of my life, to have them less intrusive, to do things on purpose that says no, you're not going to be able to use me in that fashion. I don't put my money in the bank, I put it in silver and Bitcoin, right? You see those type of things when you actively think in this fashion. Well, what will end up happening is that the more that the people produce this power within themselves will also create an outcome of reflection of very much the same thing. We give them the power. We literally give it to them. Here, just take it. We're not worthy of it. You can have it. Right? Very much by saying it. We only have these two choices. No, you don't. You just gave them your two choices. That's it. I only have these two choices. I have nothing else in my life but these two choices. Like, okay, well, that's up to you. I have far more choices than that, and I make choices that say those are my two choices. I'm sorry guys, but I'm going to do my best to make you irrelevant. All right. I can't do it 100%. Some people make them 100% involved. It's you got to do something about my life being screwed up, right? That's like they try to do 100% involvement in it. Other people are like, man, I should be taking advantage of that, but I don't because I don't want to be involved. Right? And now, if more people were to take on a mindset that says, "Yeah, I'm going to live a life that has you have them being irrelevant in my life," right? Like literally say that to the government. You guys are not relevant in my life. And they live down that path, and you're going to find that people will begin, the whole thing will start to change. And who knows what it'll change into? I don't know. I'm not saying it'll be a good or bad thing. I'm just saying that you do have a choice. I don't try to change it. I don't try to say, hey, man, we can have a better way. I don't think that there is a better way. I think this is it. This is the best way that I could ever possibly have it. And it's up to me to make it better if I want to make it better. But there's nothing out there that's going to change to make it better for me outside of my own changing of what it is that I do. And I don't want to change anything I'm doing. I like what I'm doing. I love the fact that I can do this and that here later in a few hours, I'm going to go call bingo, that I get to go cook ribs here in the barbecue, get to hang out here on YouTube, got to play, in the flower garden earlier today. Like, these are the things that I want to do. There's nothing out there that, like, is there more? Sure. There's jet airplanes and Caribbean cruises and, like, all kinds of, like, there's a lot of things out there that could be had. That's great. I had a wonderful day today. I don't know there ain't much that I would want to do different. Maybe I've gone fishing. That would have made it just that much better. If I got to go and cast a line and reel a fish in, that would have made today, that would just want to seal the deal. I don't need much, right? Good view, decent music, ribeyes. Yeah, right? I went up and hung out on the beach until midnight the other night with a group of friends around a campfire. It was a wonderful experience. We sat there, cooked hot dogs and roasted marshmallows and told jokes and just hung out, right? Didn't cost It cost more to get there because of the distance that I had to drive than anything else. That's it, man. Outside of that, what else do you need? Everything else is a luxurious experience that you're going to have to spend money for, and it has to make somebody else relevant in your life. You don't need anybody else relevant. You need the farmer and the butcher, right? You need those guys relevant in your life. You need the musician and the artist, make your life a little bit more pleasurable. Right? All the rest of this stuff, it's not that important. It really isn't. But people make it important in their life. They need a nice new car. They need, a fancy vacation. They need to have, high status and all these other things. And so their life becomes very complicated and very difficult. And then they wonder what it is that can happen out there to make their life less complicated and difficult. I don't know what the hell the administration is going to do other than just get involved in your life and make it more complicated and difficult. So, I don't know, what you're going to do, but I know what I do. And again, I just don't give them that much importance or that much credit to be involved in my life to the point that I'm going to say, hey, man, you need to change the way you're doing things in order for me to be happy. Right? It ain't going to work like that. I mean, it never will. Never in the history of time has that ever taken place. I drank at the wedding the night before that cost me my, what is that? Heteration? And I had to drink a ton of water. Oh, hydration. Hydration. Okay, I get it. God. I can't read sometimes. All right. I love my life. Well, good. You should. Everybody should. It was funny. Sarah and I were talking one time about people who don't really like their lives and the times that in life where we didn't really like what we had going on or something of that nature. And Freddie looks at us and he was just like, I like myself. It was just like we looked at Freddie. It was like, good, dude. Always hold on to that. And he looked at us like, wait, don't be so weird. And it was like really like he'd had no concept of what it is to not like yourself. I just loved it. I was just like, man, I hope you hold on to that forever because there's so many times people will lose that and then they can't excel in life because they just don't even have the confidence within themselves to appreciate themselves, to love themselves enough to say, yeah, I deserve it in my life to go for it. They think they're sitting around waiting for somebody to say, hey, man, you deserve this. Here you go. Right? Instead of just going out there going, well, maybe I just need to go take it. Ever thought? It was just like, if a wolf is hungry, is he going to wait for somebody to come bring him a piece of food, or is he going to go and kill a little deer? I mean, I hate to put it that way, but he's going to go kill a little deer because that's the opportunity that he has. He's hungry. People are like, oh, we live in human time, man societies, and we do better than that, and we can, okay, whatever, human nature isn't going to stop this separation between the rich and the poor when you say, or it's going to continue. I mean, but you can say, man, we should not allow this to happen, and then it's going to happen anyway because that's the natural consequences of being a human, right? You want the most and best for yourself. And if you don't have it, then you want to look at somebody else saying, hey, man, how come you have it and I don't? It's your fault, mine. I tried everything I did in my life to be good. Right? How come I don't have it? And it was just like, well, perhaps maybe you just believe that you don't deserve it. Right? Like, it's hard to take that. I mean, I know because that's what I thought a long time ago. When I was 40 years old and I was drunk as hell, and I believed that the New World Order was after me, and I thought all this stuff, right? I mean, I had all these, horrible things. I didn't think I was just even worthy of any of it. Literally. I was just like, some people have it, and some people don't, and I'm one of the people who don't. That's all there is to it. And then one day I said, I'm not going to believe that anymore. I was actually hanging out with a buddy of mine who just kind of proved to me that you can just go out there and take whatever you want from the world. And the way he did it caused consequences in his life. And I said, whoa, I don't want to do that. I don't want to cause the consequences. But I do want anything in my life. All right, so there's got to be a way that I can do this without the massive consequences like you're facing because you just go through it like a whirlwind and just take whatever you want. Right? And it's weird. It's not it seemed like thievery in a lot of times, but I never seen him go to jail. I saw him talk to the cops a lot. All right, through all his little schemings and ideas and everything that he was doing in order to get his massive abundance that he was able to acquire, he talked to the cops a lot. People always accusing him of something. All right? And I thought to myself, I don't want to deal with those sort of repercussions in order to get whatever I want. There's got to be another way. And so I thought to myself, how is it that I can get whatever I want? And I thought, well, what is it that you even really want? Yeah, I mean, do you really want all that fancy stuff in your life? And I'm thinking, at times, at times I do, but no, not really. I mean, I just really just want to be able to pay my bills on time and hang out with my family and do whatever it is that I want to do for the day. And, maybe garden a little and keep on the property and just do that kind of thing. Like, I don't really want anything fancy or nothing. Like, I never really wanted that in my life. And so the universe was really easy to provide that. And I'm like, oh, here you go, man. You do that YouTube channel, you provide, honest opinions and useful information, and you try and help out the world in that fashion, then yeah, being able to pay your bills shouldn't be that hard. And it wasn't. Like, I mean, I can't go out there and buy a new truck because then that would be the only thing I would have. And I would have to maintain that new truck and all that other stuff. I was like, I got this old Suburban. This thing is badass. You know how awesome this thing is? It doesn't have any back seats in it. It makes it even cooler. It's like literally, I look back at it and I'm like, yeah, that's so rad. I got so many options, Uh, Van down by the river, cabin in the woods, same thing. Oh yeah, totally. But see, that's also the understanding of how it is that the Cantillon effect really destroys people. What time is it? Am I gotta go? Yeah, okay, I gotta go. But that's really understanding how it is that the Cantillon effect will end up destroying your world. Like if you move your life into a higher standard of living. If I bought, like I already bought an expensive house for my area. Like this house shouldn't cost this much. Anywhere else in the entire country, this house would be a third of the price, right? I mean, maybe not half the price, maybe a little bit more, 2/3 the price. But in my area, it's real expensive. If I want to live here, I have to cut back on all the rest of the stuff. Like I can't drive fancy car. I'm not going to go and take wild trips or spend money willy nilly or whatever. I live in a very expensive area. In order to do that, I have to cut back on just about everything else. But it's worth it. It's so worth it to me to live in a clean, friendly, beautiful place like Astoria is. I mean, it was just voted one of the 10th, like one of the nicest places in the country to be is here in Astoria, and there's no doubt in my mind that's the case. I mean, it is a really nice area, but it costs so damn much. I mean, it's a lot to live here. And so anywhere else, it would be far easier. If it was far easier, I may never have started this YouTube channel. I may have never, actually, I probably would have started the YouTube channel anyway, but it may have never grown to the point that it became available for partnership and ad revenue and all that other stuff. It's because I lived here. It was because I was driven. It was because if I don't do something, I'm going to have to leave. Right? And I wanted to stay. And so the universe was just like, well, that's easy. If you want to stay, here you go. Right? That's all. That you just want to stay? Well, here's a modest house. And figure it out. So I get to stay. And that's like absolutely wonderful for me, because people who were following me a few years ago as this issue was arising of me having to leave a rental that I was in Astoria and having no place to go to, and it was expensive as hell, and I was fading into like, like how am I going to even come up with a down payment, as things were coming awry with the down payment and my past history with credit, and it was just a horrible thing, but yet everything lined up perfectly. And then the house shot to the moon in on the ZELLE estimate, which was ridiculous, and now it's fallen back down to an area far above from what I paid for it. And again, like, I cannot believe how well I landed. It's like I felt like I got thrown completely around and just landed right on my feet. No problem. Boom. It was like, no way, right? I mean, I look back 8 years ago to where I am now, and I'm like, what the hell happened? It was just like, okay. All right, guys, I gotta go. Mom is telling me I have to. My mom has messaged me, and she says, you have to go to the Rebel Capitalist. You have to go. You have to go. So I'm going to go to I've got to go and get that figured out. I'm going to, I guess, get tickets and get a hotel. I guess I should call George and see if he'll give me some tickets to get in. I guess I shouldn't plan to go there unless I can get into the damn event. All right, did I see another super chat pop up? Get all nighter down there too. The Hylers, thank you so much for the super sticker, $1.99. All right. Yes, we do. All right. I love the weather on the Oregon coast. Yeah, I do too. 9 months out of the year it rains. And those 9 months aren't like consistent, but on a beautiful day like this is a sunny, beautiful, wonderful, awesome place. Like lawnmowers, I can hear quite a few lawnmowers going off in the neighborhood all day. It's like, I don't know. Why would I want to be anywhere else? People are like, man, there's so many other cheaper places in the world to live. And I'm like, yeah, but does it look like this? Is it like this? Probably not. Like, this is like it, man. For a lot of people, it may not be, but for me, it is. All right. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know. What is that? Deplorable. I'm going to read Deplorables, last one. Have a great day and a good trip, Simon. Thank you, Brody. All right. And it's not because of the illegal immigrants and violent. No, don't say that. All right. Deplorable. I like you here, man. I like it when you're here. Okay. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.